In today's video, I'm speaking to the person who carries a lot of excess shame. If you have spent most of your life, or at least a large chunk of your life, having excess shame and feeling low about yourself majority of the time, there's one thing that I can tell you, and I know this to be true because I experienced it myself. You don't actually know yet how wonderful life can feel. Carrying excess shame blocks off so much of life's beauty. And for you, if you're in that state, this isn't fully going to resonate. That sentence I just said isn't going to fully click for you because you haven't experienced that yet. But this video is so that you can experience that, so you can get to that state. So I myself experienced a lot of excess shame from, I don't know how long, I don't know when it began, but it felt like it was for my entire life when I was experiencing. It felt like I didn't have a day that went by where I didn't have low self-worth. But the thing is when you have low self-worth and you have excess shame, it's often unseen and it's often hidden. There's a conclusion I came to when I started seeing the impact this excess shame had on my life. And this conclusion was that so much of these internal problems that we're seeing in people, addiction, depression, relationship issues, attracting terrible partners, these problems people are experiencing, they have this assumption that it stems from something else. But oftentimes the answer is really simple, and it's just that the person has low self-worth. When we have low self-worth and we carry a lot of shame, there is a pattern that happens. When we experience certain emotions in excess in our life and they become our familiar, they become something that we are subconsciously addicted to because they are familiar. When we experience these emotions in excess, it's almost like we are walking on a path in the category of that emotion. So whatever path we are walking on, what the brain does is it wants two things with this path. It wants, number one, for you to stay on the path. Let's say you're on the shame path. Your brain will want you to act in certain ways to help you stay on the shame path. It will want you and cause you to think in certain ways to keep you on this shame path. And it would also cause you to desire to go towards certain things that will keep you on this shame path. The second thing that the brain wants in this situation is it not only wants you to stay on the path, it also wants to amplify the emotion. It wants to amplify the shame, because your shame could start down here, and it did start down here when you had that first shameful experience and you experienced it again and again and again. The emotion grew stronger because the brain was amplifying the emotion as you were on that path. When I say people are experiencing so many negative internal conflicts and not realizing that it's stemming from their shame, that is because they've been walking on this path of shame, or we can also call it low self-worth, walking on the path of low self-worth for so long. The brain has maintained them staying on that path of the low self-worth and the shame, and also succeeded at its goal to amplify the emotion that you are experiencing. All those things that it's doing to keep you on the path where you think in those negative spirals so you experience low self-worth, where you act in certain ways so you experience the low self-worth, and you desire to go towards the relationships, the situations, the things in life that will bring that low self-worth, all of that's going to be dialed up if you continue on this pain. It's like the shame starts with a teaspoon, okay? If we continue in that emotion, it will turn into a waterfall. It continues to grow. If you desire coaching, I offer that, and that can be booked through the description below. And if you want to develop yourself as a person and love personal development in general, I recommend that you subscribe, because I have a lot of content to come that hopefully you will like. I know that sounds scary, but in this video, my goal for you and what I'm teaching you is how to shift from that path of shame, from that being your familiar, to shifting to the state and the path of having self-worth. I spent most of my life walking on the excess shame path, and when it clicked for me and I had the realization that my brain was trying to amplify that feeling, it really set me back, and it made me realize that I was creating I was deep down wanting more situations that will bring up more of that shame. So when you're on this path and bad things happen to you that bring up shame inside, subconsciously there's this almost relief and this satisfaction internally, even though you're going through so much pain. And that comes from the fact that your brain is happy that you're continuing on the path that is familiar to you. You don't even have to be addicted to an emotion to walk on the path and for the emotion to amplify it. If you've ever experienced a stressful day, you, of course, you have your human, you'll realize that when you're in that stressful state, almost everything else feels more stressful than what it would usually feel like. Whatever emotion we are experiencing in the moment becomes amplified if we're feeling it intensely. And so this will make everything else seem correlated to that emotion. So if we're experiencing a lot of sadness, everything else is going to seem more sad. If we're experiencing a lot of shame, everything else is going to bring us to a low self-worth state until we get out of it. So this analogy I gave you is something I want you to remember for your life in general, because it will help you when you see it for what it is. When you see, okay, I'm on the sad path right now. Everything seems really, really sad right now, but that might not actually be the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that I'm on the sad path right now, so everything seems worse than it is. But once I get off the path, I'll be able to see the truth. I'll be able to see that things weren't really that sad, or things really weren't that stressful, or things really weren't that horrible as they seemed. I was just spiraling on this path because my brain wanted to amplify the emotion. So the number one priority when you see you're on that certain path is to get off the path. And this is through emotionally processing. Back to my story. So my excess shame, because I was on that path, everything felt shameful. And the second conclusion I came to about myself and about those who experience excess shame is that we subconsciously have an agenda that's completely unknown to us. And this agenda is that through every single thing that we do, if we're at the extreme of excess shame, every single thing that we do, we're subconsciously doing to prove our worth. When we live a life where our agenda, our goal, and our energy is being poured in trying to prove who we are, in trying to prove that we're good enough, it will inevitably 1,000,000% set you down a really bad path. Okay, internally, it is not actually possible to feel good in life if your agenda in life is just to prove that you are good enough. You can't actually feel good in life. You can't experience life's beauty when you just have this one goal. Your energy is being depleted and you're feeling so unfulfilled because it is so polar opposite to the way life should be lived. Okay, life is not about should never be about proving yourself. Okay, it's never been about that. It's never how your body was designed to live. It's never how you were created. So having the agenda of trying to prove yourself, this shows up in a million different ways, and it's going to show up in ways for you that it didn't show up for me, and it's going to show up in ways for me that it's not going to show up for you, because we're all different. We all have different categories in our brain that we associate and decide subconsciously are the things that make us more worthy and the things that make us less worthy. Okay, so for somebody, the thing that makes them more worthy could be the likes they get on Instagram, so they spend their whole life trying to look perfect on Instagram. Or for another person, their worth comes from their work. Their worth comes from the validation that they get from other people. Their worth comes from how many people look at them on the streets as they're walking, from the praise that they get from other people. There's just so many things that people think they get their worth from. And worth is something that can never fluctuate. It's something that we were born into having. We have worth. It's literally not possible to fluctuate. But when we have this idea that certain things will create our worth to fluctuate, we will continue to pursue these things in order to gain the feeling that we're enough. But in the pursuit of these things, it is never ending. And it is the most unfulfilling thing ever. You get very minor moments of satisfaction, but when you're on that path of low self-worth, that satisfaction will never be enough, because again, the brain just wants to keep you on that path. The brain wants to amplify the feeling that you're experiencing on that path. So when you get that momentary satisfaction of worth in the category you think deems you as worthy, the brain goes, okay, we got this feeling that's slightly nudging you towards the path of self-worth, but the brain will bring you back to the path. The brain will say, this was not enough, now we need more. Now we need to do more. Now we need to prove ourselves more. And what this does for a lot of people is, I would say for most people, when they're on this path, especially for a long time, is it turns you into somebody who you're really not. So of course we're going to be inauthentic, but it can turn the happiest people into the grumpiest people. It can turn the people who are the most playful and joyful in life to the most serious and sad. So I was at that place. I truly believe my depression in the past, there were a lot of components to it, like I didn't feel my emotions and I wasn't disciplined whatsoever. I indulged in so much dopamine, but I believe the number one thing, because I wouldn't have actually partaked in so many of those other things, such as not feeling my emotions and not being disciplined. The number one component of my depression was actually the low self-worth. And I'm going to tell you the number one thing that helped me to help me shift on that path. So the goal here, I'm going to be realistic with you. The goal here is to first experience the feeling of knowing you have worth. Just experience the feeling of having a few steps on the path of the self-worth path, okay? Just to experience it. This is the number one goal for you to have right now. Now, some people will experience the feeling and the knowing that they have worth and they step onto that path and they stay on it, okay? But if you've experienced most of your life having excess shame, there is a pattern that I see in most people when I help them with this and when I teach them about this, and that is that you step onto the path, you feel the knowing that you have worth for the very first time, and what happens is the brain tries to bring you back to the familiar state. This is normal, this is okay. But the beautiful thing is that when you take your first steps on an unfamiliar path, it suddenly becomes familiar. Okay, because it became familiar at one point, because it became something that you knew at one point, it becomes so much easier to continue stepping back onto that path. It rewires your brain, it creates the neural pathways of knowing you have self-worth. So when you step back onto the path of excess shame, because that is the most familiar state you've experienced for most of your life, you now have the neural pathways to understand what it feels like to be on the path of knowing you have self-worth. And because you have those new neural pathways and you rewired your brain one time by experiencing the self-worth and knowing that you have self-worth, you can do it again and you can do it much easier. And so then what happens with people is when they step onto that path, when they get off of it, if they get off of it, they can get on easier. And what you have to do, the whole point of this all, is to continue stepping back, continue stepping back, continue stepping back. And what will happen before you know it, if you really commit to doing this, is that's going to become your norm. And you're going to fall so in love with what it feels like to actually know you have worth that you're not going to want to step back. And what I love to say, what I love to remind people of, is that shame is a beautiful thing to actually have. The purpose of shame is beautiful, okay? The purpose of shame is to shift us out of the wrong things we're doing so that we can do the right things, okay? When I say walking on the shame path, I'm talking about the excess unnecessary shame, those negative spirals. We can know our worth and still experience healthy shame. It is possible to have healthy shame, to know your worth and also know when you made a mistake. But when you have the worth and you make the mistake, you no longer spiral, beat yourself up, or go into a depressive episode because of it. You actually just take the actions required to make the situation right, without all the extra unnecessary stuff. Okay, so what I did is I affirmed, but not just in a regular way. So when most people affirm, they affirm with little emotion. I only affirmed when I knew 100% to be true, when I had this knowing inside. There's a difference between semi-believing and then knowing. When I knew, oh, I am worthy. Oh, I am enough. I knew that to be true. I indulged in that, and I would affirm only when I had that knowing. Oh, I am worthy. I am enough. I would indulge in that. And then when I would experience things in life that would usually set me on the path of shame, let's say I did something embarrassing, I did something that didn't reach the standards that I had for myself, I did something that would have usually caused myself to beat myself up, I stepped back into that knowing, and I almost kind of laughed about it in a lighthearted way. Oh, that thing happened. That's nothing to do with my worth. I am worthy. I am enough. It's nothing to do with my worth. And I would affirm it, but only with the knowing. I wouldn't robotically affirm it. I would only affirm it with the knowing, not for hours, not even for 30, 40 minutes, just enough for me to really set in stone that knowing. So what we have to do is we have to become familiar with that feeling of knowing we are enough with actual conviction of, yeah, this is true. This is normal. We don't have to be really excited when we say it. We just have to say it in a very secure way. Oh, I am enough. Okay, so what is required for some people to get in this state? So for me, I did EFT tapping to get myself into the knowing. It could be a journal session. For somebody else, it could be a coaching or therapy session. You need to do the thing that gives you the realization to get you into that knowing state that you are worthy and that you always have been worthy. When you get into the state, I need you to indulge yourself in that state with conviction and with pure belief. And what's going to happen is you're going to experience life and you're going to realize that there are so many areas that you weren't even aware of where you would beat yourself up and you didn't even recognize it. Because when you slowly start to shift into that shameful state, you're going to shift into the knowing that you are enough. And you're going to look at it and realize, I would beat myself up over that. I would be upset at myself over this. There's just going to be so many things in your life when you continue to shift, and it's going to feel strange. It's going to feel unfamiliar, but you continue to do it because you are now walking on the path of self-worth. So what can really help people with these EFT sessions, with the coaching sessions, with the journaling, whatever it is to get you into the state, what can really help people shift is by asking these questions. Who said I was not enough? And is it really true? Why am I not enough? And is it really true? The best way to combat this is to ask yourself if it's really true. Is your low self-worth really true? Is the fact that you're not worthy really true? And I'm here to tell you that it's not true and it's never been true, because again, your worth literally cannot fluctuate. You were born into the world, you were created and designed with worth. It's literally not possible for that to fluctuate. No matter what experiences you have and have had, it's not possible for your worth to disappear. So question, is it actually true that you are unworthy? Do these things, have these journal sessions, these tapping sessions, these coaching sessions, whatever resonates with you, whatever you feel like will work for you. Do it until you know, oh, I am worthy. And you might ask, how can I know? What is it like to know? When you know, you know. That's all I can say here. When you know, you know. It's such an unfamiliar feeling to the person who has experienced such low self-worth for so much of their life. When it clicks for you, you won't be able to deny it. Okay, it may not feel extreme, but it's just an internal knowing. You finally feel convicted that it's true. Those lies that you were told, and maybe you weren't even told lies, but those experiences that made you create that belief inside of yourself that you weren't worthy, all of that wasn't true. It was a manufactured false idea that was created in your mind. And there are other factors to this. There are a lot of evil, not great things in this world that can contribute to us feeling unworthy. But whatever it was for you, that message that you cultivated for whatever reason was and is a message that is completely false. So we have to get to the state of knowing that it is false. We can go back to that feeling. It has now rewired the brain to make that feeling something that you can go back to so much easier. So when you're walking on that path of excess shame and it's creating your anxiety, your depression, your bad habits, your addictions, when you're walking on the path, you're seeing yourself spiral, that's when you need to do the tool, and that's when you need to shift into the state of knowing, hold up, I am worthy, I always have been worthy, and I always have been enough. This doesn't mean we need to feed our egos and think we are better than anybody else. That's not true either. But we need to know that we don't have to live a life where we don't feel like we are enough. It's not possible for us to be on this earth and not have worth. You are enough, and you always have been enough. Watch how much more beautiful life becomes when you actually know this. Please let me know any suggestions for videos that you would like to see. I would love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye guys.